Hi, I'm Cesar Claro, President and CEO of the Staten Island Economic Development Corporation. Do you own a business on Staten Island? Are you looking to start a new business? Are you interested in the housing market? If you answered yes to any one of those questions, then this is the show for you. This is Staten Island, and this is the SIEDC. Welcome back to the SIEDC TV show. We're here today with a longtime SIEDC member and president of FerryAds, David Rampulla. David, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, David, anyone who wants to advertise on Staten Island, wants to reach the Staten Island market, pretty much has to go through you. FerryAds controls the market both on and off Staten Island. Now, you have all the ad space on the ferry terminals, but you're also in Whitehall. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that whole effort and FerryAds in general?
Well, 5 years ago, we won the contract to do the advertising on the Staten Island ferries, the boats, and the St. George terminal. We weren't the original contract holders. The contract holders gave that to us, and they kept back Whitehall because Whitehall was, quote unquote, the plums.
Right,
they were the big white, the big backlit displays, the lit displays. It was just the stuff that the national advertisers were going to eat up. They weren't interested in having small advertisers come on. They weren't interested in the boats. So they held that back, and we got the boats and we got St. George. Through a series of events that had nothing to do with the advertising, the Whitehall terminal, the advertising contract holders ended up losing the contract, and the city put it up for bid again. And we bid on it, and we won the contract. So now we actually control the Manhattan side, the Staten Island side, and the boats.
So those are ads on the boats. Those are electronic signs in Whitehall and regular banners.
A zipper, which is a 300-foot by 3-foot ticker that runs around the perimeter over the doors and coming up the escalators. That's the electronic portion of it. And then there are big backlit displays up on the walls and above the crowds.
So on average, a person that advertises on the zipper, their ad's going to run how many times a day on average?
Well, it's really difficult to say. We basically go by what we promise people if you buy the zipper is one message every 3 minutes. And the situation is you usually get more than that because the zipper is broken up into 5 parts.
Right.
And we guarantee that on one part of that sign, the zipper, your message will run, but usually it runs probably once a minute because we have the inventory for it and we try to run it. My belief is when we designed all the packages on the ferry and the zipper and the terminals, what we wanted, I had an advertising agency. I ran an advertising agency for 17 years before I got the ferry contract. And I always knew the Staten Island Ferry was a great place to advertise. But one of the complaints I had heard years ago from clients over the course of time was, you know, they may have done a buy that was too small someplace else, wherever, and they wanted to make sure that it was effective. When I got the ferry contract, we designed all of our every single contract we sell that's in our rate card is designed to be what's called a 100 showing, meaning that if you buy the smallest package in our rate card, which is a 25-board package of the 21 by 33s on the boats, every person who gets on the boat technically should see your sign at least once. Right. Because a 25-board package has a sign at the entry of the boat and the exit of the boat, and then obviously when it goes back the other way, they switch, right. And then they'll have another few signs that are in the seating areas. So people not only will see your signs, but they'll actually be able to see them over and over again on the boat and for a long duration. I mean, one of the things that really separates us is that people can be in close proximity to your sign for 25 minutes. Right. I mean, how often does an advertiser actually get to go to...
Right in front of you for that long?
And basically, if you're the client, basically take that board and put it in front of you for 25 minutes. You could really tell a story.
Well, I have to tell you, as someone involved in economic development for many years on Staten Island, I'm very proud when I'm walking through the terminal and I'm on the ferry and I just see a sea of Staten Island business advertisements. I mean, it's a real, you know, just reading them all and viewing them all, you get a flavor for the business community of Staten Island in that 25-minute boat ride. So I think you guys are doing a great job.
But that, even with that, that was a tremendous boon for us. The prior contract holder for the full system was CBS Outdoor, and then Viacom before that. Right. You know, for Viacom, when they were Viacom, they owned everything. They owned the subways, they owned the buses, they owned the ferry, they owned everything. And this ferry was a small part of their empire. So they didn't really pay much attention to it. The new boats didn't have any signs on them. Only the old Kennedy-class boats had signs on them. And if you wanted to buy it, you had to brand the system. So it was like, I think it was anywhere from $35,000 to $50,000 a month. Take it or leave it. They weren't interested in the small business person. I recall back from 15 years ago when a small company held the contract that it was always small advertisers. It was the local advertisers that were up there, and it was very important for the community to be able to have that access. What we've done is we've broken up the packages for the small advertisers so that a small business can afford to actually run on the ferries and reach that market. And we've spent almost $500,000 building out frames on all the different boats throughout the terminals, the big backlit displays. We've really built the system up to be a good advertising vehicle for a local company. What that's done for us, how it's paid off for us, is we've outsold Viacom 5-1. Because Viacom, they sold it or they didn't sell it, it didn't matter. To us, it really matters.
The MTA cuts on Staten Island and throughout the city, how does that affect ridership, and what's its impact going to be on advertising?
Well, you know, I've always been somewhat of a contrarian to certain things, and probably, and I hate to say this, but the one person that had a silver lining to the whole MTA cut deal was myself and the advertisers on the ferries, because the MTA cut bus service. They cut X buses that were going into Manhattan, okay? And I think Janelle Hire-Spencer, I think she wrote something on the internet that the X bus service cuts, or the service cuts from the MTA affected 15,000 islanders, 15,000 island commuters. The MTA's response to that was, okay, you could either go to another bus line or you could take the Staten Island Ferry into the city. It's a quicker way into Lower Manhattan,
it's free.
And it's free.
Right.
So what's happened is, prior to the MTA making their cuts, which took effect in June, I have articles that basically talk about, in the last 2 years, the ridership officially 2 years ago was 75,000 plus.
Right.
Now, we've heard 80,000 bandied around 2 years ago. The article that I have, which I think we're showing right now, basically states that ridership has been growing in the last 2-year period because the ferry is free and because other rates have gone up, parking rates have gone up, gas rates have gone up. So a lot more people were taking the ferry, and even on the 4 o'clock boats prior to the MTA cuts, sometimes people had trouble finding a seat.
I've never seen it as crowded as it is the last 6 months.
And these are boats that carry 4,000 to 6,000 passengers capacity on each trip back and forth.
So we're talking north of 80,000 a day.
Well north, and now that was my estimate prior to the MTA cuts. Now the MTA cut service to 10,000 to 15,000 islanders. Let's assume some of them are driving in, even though it costs $100 a day. The ones who didn't want to spend that, okay, for free, can basically get on the ferry and go into Manhattan. So I'm assuming that we got a lion's share of the people who lost their bus service are coming on the ferries, and it's showing.
So your advertisers are actually benefiting from the MTA cost because they're reaching more people.
Not only are they benefiting
right
from
or wrong, you know, or
right.
Unfortunately.
Well, the advertisers are benefiting from it. They can appreciate it, and I mean, they're embracing it a lot more because media is changing a lot every place, and I mean, the market's getting more and more segmented. But as a mass media, I mean, I would venture to say that we're probably reaching more islanders than any other media on the planet. I mean, there's nothing that really comes close to that, except maybe broadcast television. Right.
Well, that's a good lead into the next question, which is, or next observation. There's a lot of efforts to draw more tourists on Staten Island. Now, clearly there are more riders on the ferry, but they're not tourists. They're commuters. They're Staten Islanders.
Oh, they're tourists.
No, but I'm saying these
ones,
additional people. There are a lot of efforts underway. As someone who has spent a great deal of time and money in the boat terminals, on the boats, you know that market. What are we not doing that we could do to draw these people so they're not just getting off, making the famous circle, and getting back on the next boat going out?
This is a loaded question, and I'll tell you why. The first thing you have to realize, I mean, you have to look at the mindset of a tourist. Someone came to New York City. They probably saved up. They're either looking forward to this trip for a year, 2 years, maybe their lifetime, okay? They came to America, they're coming to New York City, they came from all over the states, they came to New York City. They want to see a Broadway show. They want to go they want to go have dinner at the restaurants that they see on Sex and the City and all these other different places. They want to go to the Empire State Building. They want to go to this ferry, which is the second most touristed destination in New York City, Times Square. Museum-wise, you have the Metropolitan Museum, you have the Museum of Natural History. You know, there's hundreds of museums and galleries in Manhattan. Now we have Staten Island, and we have galleries, and we have tourism, okay? These people already have 5 days in Manhattan, you know, with travel and everything else. They're booked.
They're booked.
Okay? You've got to get something. There's got to be something that's so enticing to make them get off the boat and come on to Staten Island.
Right.
And it's got to be exciting, and it's got to be fun, and it's got to be, you know, new. And, you know, I think that we have great museums and we have a lot of great cultural attractions here, but there's a lot of really great cultural attractions in Manhattan.
Right.
So how do you make these people move?
No, that's a very good point.
You got to think outside the box a little bit. And it's possible, okay? But you really have to think way outside the box. And here's where, you know, I'll get into trouble.
Yeah.
The Jersey Shore, okay? It's having a banner year this year, okay? Seaside Heights, all over the Jersey Shore. I've never seen so much traffic going down there. I've never seen so many people going there. One of the things that I think is responsible for it, especially for the young people going, is a TV show called The Jersey Shore.
Right.
Okay? Jersey didn't have a PR campaign saying, the Jersey Shore is nothing like that. This doesn't happen here. The Jersey Shore basically embraced it
Let it
and
happen.
let it go.
Let it go.
And now what you have is a lot of young people are saying, I want to go to the Jersey Shore. That's really exciting. And
Right.
with them come everyone else. Another example, if you look at Saturday Night Fever, back in the day, Brooklyn didn't have a campaign that said, there are no Guidos in Brooklyn,
Right.
okay? They embraced it, and I mean, there's a sign that when you leave Brooklyn, it says, you're now leaving Brooklyn. Forget about it,
Right, right,
okay? It's a joke. It's not all of Brooklyn. It's a chapter in Brooklyn. It's one chapter, but there are many other chapters, and Brooklyn is a very big place, like Staten Island. We've had things like, I mean, you know, I'll just give an example, the Staten Island Girl TV show from MTV, to go back to MTV. That show ran, and when I was still traveling with business. I was in Florida, and they said, you're from Staten Island? It looks like it's a lot of fun. Do you see any of this? Is this happening? And basically, there's an excitement about it, okay? If on the ferries, let's say Fushimi, okay, ran an ad that basically said, you know, as seen on MTV's, you know, I'm a Staten Island Girl or whatever else.
Right.
When I look at those tourists on the ferries, they have a lot of teenage kids,
Right.
okay? They would tell their parents, listen, let's go to lunch with Fushimi. Let's go. I definitely want to see this. This is exciting.
I see where you're going.
It's something that...
Well, maybe we can get Tom Scarron and Rich Grado to take off their shirts and you know, show their chests like the situation does, and that may draw people.
That is a possibility, but I
Staten.
think Murray Berman actually killed that, and I hope you don't show that because that's just.
That's right. You bring up a good point. There is this calendar that Pearl Minsky put out of famous Staten Island people in the nude, but covering their private parts with
Very
products
tastefully done.
related to their
Industry.
And Murray Berman, I think, was the centerfold. So maybe that's something that we could promote.
Exactly.
But in all seriousness, coming back to the Staten Island Ferry Terminal itself, the New York City Economic Development Corporation and the New York City Department of Transportation have made some strides in filling that retail space. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the tenants that are there, but the restaurant space is still open. And that, of course, will be the big draw. What do you see or what do you hear about it?
Well, you know, I've spoken to the people at the EDC. I think that leases are except for maybe the catering hall, I think leases are pending for a lot of it. I mean, they can't discuss what's going to happen or what's not going to happen if it hasn't been signed yet. But I do think there are plans on almost all of it on the Staten Island side and a good portion of it on the Manhattan side. And it is building up, and a lot is going on. There's a lot of construction going on. Even on the Whitehall side, there's a lot of construction going on. What's going to end up happening is they're going to become destinations. I mean, look at what happened with the Baltimore waterfront, okay? Look at what happens when any waterfront gets all these restaurants in and everything is alive and vibrant. And these locations, these two ferry terminals, I think the city spent, or the DOT spent and the federal government spent $750 million to get the 3 new ferry boats and build the 2 new terminals. So they have these state-of-the-art, gorgeous facilities.
Right.
When all that is in, they're going to be a destination. And what you're going to see is people are going to come, not just commuters are going to go to those restaurants,
Right.
but people are going to come to the ferry. And I think that's going to aid in tourism as well, because now the terminals themselves will be destinations. Instead of just having
It's got to be more than
newsstands.
Transportation and convenience retail. It has
Exactly.
to be
There's got to be a little bit more substance. But the substance, it's planned, it's there, it's coming, And I
Gotcha.
think once it does, it's a boon for everything. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone.
Well, Dave, thank you for everything you're doing, and thank
Great.
you for your support of the EDC.